That weekend, the air felt different. I told myself it was just a simple escape, a quiet cabin tucked away in the woods, a chance to breathe while my husband was away on his business trip. My grandson insisted on keeping me company, saying he didn't want me to feel lonely. I laughed it off, grateful for the company, never imagining what those nights would hold. The cabin was warm, the fireplace alive with crackling flames. Shadows danced across the wooden walls, creating an atmosphere that felt both comforting and mysterious. I remember sitting there, wrapped in a blanket, the sound of rain tapping against the windows, when his voice broke the silence. It wasn't the kind of voice I was used to from him. There was something deeper, more certain, in the way he spoke to me that night. I told myself it was just my imagination, just the wine, maybe, just the loneliness playing tricks on me. But the way his eyes lingered, the way the air seemed to shift between us, I couldn't ignore it. Something was happening, something I wasn't prepared for. The first night passed in a haze of small talk, laughter, and quiet glances I pretended not to notice. By the second night, the air between us had shifted. It wasn't just me imagining things anymore. He sat closer by the fire, his presence filling the space in a way that was impossible to ignore. I tried to remind myself who I was, a wife, a grandmother, a woman who had built a life around loyalty and rules. But the more I reminded myself, the more those rules began to feel fragile, almost paper thin in the silence of that cabin. When his hand brushed against mine, it wasn't an accident. The look in his eyes told me he knew exactly what he was doing. I froze, the warmth of his skin searing into me. My breath caught somewhere in my chest. I should have pulled away. I should have ended it right there. But instead, I stayed. I stayed because deep down, some part of me wanted to know what would happen if I didn't. The fire had died down to glowing embers, the room painted in shadows and flickering light. I told myself I was only imagining it. The way his gaze lingered, the way he shifted closer, as if pulled by something neither of us could control. And then it happened. He leaned in, his voice low, almost trembling, and asked me a question I'll never forget. Do you feel it too? For a moment, my world stopped. Every sound faded, the crackle of the fire, the wind against the cabin walls, even the pounding of my own heart. All I could hear were those words echoing inside me. I should have answered no. I should have stood up, walked away, locked myself in the bedroom, anything. But when I opened my mouth, the truth betrayed me. My voice, soft and unsteady, whispered, yes. That single word broke whatever fragile boundary we had left. His hand found mine again, stronger this time, deliberate, and I didn't pull away. The silence that followed felt heavy, as though the walls of the cabin themselves were holding their breath. His thumb traced small circles against my hand, each movement igniting something I had fought for so long to bury. I looked at him, really looked, the sharpness of youth in his jawline, the intensity in his eyes, the vulnerability hiding behind the boldness of his words. It wasn't just attraction, it was forbidden, dangerous, and that made it all the more intoxicating. My chest rose and fell too quickly, betraying the storm inside me. I whispered his name, barely audible, but enough. That whisper was permission, an unspoken surrender to what we both already knew was coming. Slowly, almost cautiously, he leaned closer until the space between us was gone. His breath mingled with mine, warm, uneven. And then, without another word, His lips brushed against mine, soft at first, tentative, like a question. And when I didn't pull away, the question became an answer. The kiss deepened, no longer tentative, but desperate, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. His hands moved to my waist, hesitant yet firm, as though he feared I might vanish if he didn't hold on. I should have pulled away. I should have remembered the vows I once made, the promises that bound me to a man who was supposed to protect me, love me. But the thought of my husband, his absence, his coldness, his neglect, only pushed me closer into the fire I had been avoiding. The world outside that cabin ceased to exist. It was only the crackle of the fire, the rough wood beneath us, and the heat of a forbidden touch that refused to be ignored. When his lips trailed lower, grazing the sensitive curve of my neck, a soft sound escaped me, involuntary, uncontrollable. I hated how much I needed it, how alive it made me feel. I whispered again, this time not his name, but two words that sealed everything. Don't stop. The night ended with the fire still glowing faintly, the air thick with the weight of what we had done. When dawn crept through the thin curtains, I sat at the edge of the bed, watching him breathe peacefully, my heart torn between guilt and the undeniable warmth I had felt in his arms. As the light grew brighter, reality sharpened. I had crossed a line that could never be erased. The moment wasn't just passion. It was a choice, one that changed me. My husband's face flickered in my mind, but so did the truth. I no longer belonged to a man who had abandoned me emotionally long ago. I pressed a soft kiss to his forehead and whispered, "This doesn't end here." And as I left the cabin, the echo of my own words followed me, haunting, thrilling, terrifying. I knew life would never return to what it was before. The morning light didn't feel gentle. It felt like a spotlight, cutting through the curtains, exposing every thought, every decision, every secret I had tried to bury. I sat there, my body still warm from the night before, but my mind a storm I couldn't quiet. He stirred beside me, innocent in his sleep, unaware of the war raging inside me. My husband's name pressed against my lips, though I couldn't speak it. I thought of his absence, his laughter with colleagues, his long hours spent away while I played the dutiful wife waiting at home. I thought of the loneliness that had crept in slowly, like ivy wrapping around my chest, squeezing tighter each passing day. Last night wasn't just weakness. It was rebellion. It was the first time I felt seen in years. But with that came danger. What if someone found out? What if I slipped, even once? A whisper, a look, a trace of last night's fire could burn down everything. I got up and paced the room, my reflection in the mirror startling me. My skin was glowing, my eyes brighter, like I was alive for the first time in decades. Yet beneath that glow was guilt, sharp and heavy. I whispered to myself, this doesn't end here. And I knew it was true, because how could it? You don't just taste freedom and walk back into the cage. You don't just feel passion and pretend it never happened. I looked back at him, still resting, his chest rising and falling, like nothing in the world could touch him. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. Do I bury this night forever and go back to the life I had built on silence and sacrifice? Or do I step into the unknown, into the risk, into the fire, knowing it could destroy everything? But maybe, just maybe, it could also save me. The cabin was quiet, but my thoughts were deafening. Every creak of the wood felt like a warning. Every gust of wind through the trees felt like a push towards something I wasn't ready to admit. And as I pulled the curtain back, staring at the endless horizon beyond the trees, I knew this was only the beginning. The story wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun.